In the early 20th century, Australia was facing a unique problem. A large population of emus, native to the country, had begun to cause significant damage to crops and livestock. The birds, which can grow up to 6 feet tall and weigh over 100 pounds, were not only eating valuable food sources but also destroying fences and other infrastructure. The Australian government, looking for a solution, decided to take drastic action and declare war on the emus. The emu population had been growing rapidly in the years leading up to the war. The birds were attracted to the fertile land and abundant food sources in Western Australia, and their numbers had swelled to unprecedented levels. The Australian government, which had initially encouraged the growth of the emu population as a way to provide food and income for farmers, was now faced with the consequences of its actions. The emus were not only causing damage to crops and livestock but also competing with other animals for food and resources. In an effort to control the emu population and mitigate the damage they were causing, the Australian government decided to take military action. In 1932, the government deployed a group of soldiers, armed with machine guns, to Western Australia to hunt down and kill the emus. The soldiers, who were led by Major Meredith of the 7th Heavy Battery of the Royal Australian Artillery, were confident that they could quickly and easily eliminate the emu threat. However, the emus proved to be a more formidable opponent than the soldiers had anticipated. The birds, which are known for their speed and agility, were able to evade the soldiers' attacks and even launch counterattacks of their own. The emus would often charge at the soldiers, using their powerful legs to kick and knock them to the ground. The soldiers, who were not equipped to deal with the emu's unique brand of warfare, were quickly overwhelmed. As the war between the soldiers and the emus continued, the Australian government became increasingly frustrated with the lack of progress. The government had expected a quick and easy victory, but the emus were proving to be a more difficult opponent than they had anticipated. In an effort to turn the tide of the war, the government deployed more soldiers and equipment to Western Australia, including armoured vehicles and aircraft. Despite the increased military presence, the emus continued to thrive. The birds, which are highly adaptable, were able to adjust their behavior to avoid the soldiers' attacks. The emus began to travel in smaller groups, making it more difficult for the soldiers to track them down. They also became more nocturnal, avoiding the soldiers' daytime patrols and launching their own attacks under the cover of darkness. The soldiers, who had been confident of a quick victory, were becoming increasingly frustrated with the lack of progress. The emus were proving to be a more difficult opponent than they had anticipated, and the soldiers were beginning to feel like they were fighting a losing battle. The soldiers' morale was low, and many were questioning the wisdom of the government's decision to declare war on the emus. The Australian government, which had been confident of a quick and easy victory, was now facing embarrassment and criticism. The war against the emus was not going as planned, and the government was being ridiculed in the media and by the public. The government's decision to declare war on the emus was being seen as a mistake, and many were calling for a new approach to dealing with the emu problem. In the end, the war against the emus was a failure. The Australian government was forced to withdraw its soldiers and abandon its efforts to control the emu population. The emus, which had proven to be a more formidable opponent than anyone had anticipated, were left to roam free in Western Australia. The war had been a costly and embarrassing debacle, and it would go down in history as one of the most bizarre and unsuccessful military campaigns of all time. The Great Emu War, as it came to be known, would have a lasting impact on Australian history and culture. The war would be remembered as a symbol of the country's sometimes fraught relationship with its native wildlife, and it would serve as a cautionary tale about the dangers of underestimating the power and resilience of the natural world. The war would also inspire numerous books, films, and other works of art, cementing its place in the Australian cultural imagination. Today, the emu is an important and iconic symbol of Australian culture and identity. The bird is featured on the Australian coat of arms, and it is celebrated in numerous works of art and literature. The emu is also an important part of Australian folklore, with many stories and legends surrounding its strength, cunning, and resilience. The emu's role in the Great Emu War has only added to its legendary status, and it remains one of the most beloved and revered animals in Australian culture. The Great Emu War was a bizarre and fascinating chapter in Australian history, and it serves as a reminder of the importance of respecting and appreciating the natural world. The war may have been a failure, but it has left a lasting legacy in Australian culture and identity. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more real mysteries and discoveries.